1, 3, 2, 1. Now we're live. Okay, here we go.
Right. Good.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to EdTech in the Bin, Day 3. Our focus today is Hyperdocs, and we've got the queen of the Hyperdocs over there. But I'm going to let Holly introduce. I also want to first start out by thanking South Bend Community Schools for sponsoring us and encouraging us to do all of this awesome PD. For this week, but also note that this will be saved on YouTube and Facebook for the next couple weeks. We want to get everybody to introduce themselves and tell us where they're watching from. And now it's up to Holly.
All right. I'm excited about this one too. Everybody for EdTech in the Bin I'm excited about, but the ones I get to introduce, I'm extra excited about. This is my friend Nadine. And I met her about 3 years ago at ICE, and she was talking about Hyperdocs, which blew my mind at that time. And so immediately I said, we have this EdTech in the Bin. Can you please come? Would you please come to EdTech in the Bin? And she's like, well, I have other things and that. So for 3 years, I begged and begged. And EdTech in the Bin, we are so lucky she is here today, and just at an important time in our lives when we're all going digital. So what she has to tell us today will help all of us in the classroom. So I would like to welcome my friend, Nadine Gilkison.
Hi, everybody. Okay. Oh, nice. My third session. I'm seeing so many things. That's awesome. All right, everybody. I am going to be posting a link to the presentation that I'm going to be referring to. I just posted it into the chat there, and then you guys can get to it. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then we'll get going, okay? All right, so let's see here. All right. Oh, entire screen. Sorry, folks. You can tell it's been a minute. All right, everybody. So we are going to get started with how Hyperdocs have transformed our teaching. I'm going to slide this up just in case you guys can't see the tiny URL. And if you want to join in with what I'm going to be covering today, it's tinyurl.com/hyperft because I teach in Franklin Township. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put this into present mode and let's get started. So as Holly said, our district has been using Hyperdocs for a little while. I am going to be giving you kind of a step-by-step of how that kind of gradual release has happened over the years in my district. Just a little bit of information about myself. I am the District Technology Integration Specialist for Franklin Township Schools, which is located on the southeast side of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I am going on year 7 in this position, and I absolutely love it. I'm a Google certified innovator with a project specifically on dyslexia. And that's just a little bit about myself. So let's jump in and get started. So how I got familiar with Hyperdocs at the time, my district was starting to roll out more devices. And I'll be honest with you, I was buying something on Amazon. I don't even remember what it was, but it's like, hey, you bought this. Maybe you want to take a look at this. And the Hyperdoc Handbook popped up. And I was like, well, what is this? I've never even heard of this. And I started to flip through the pages and take a look. And I discovered that what I was preparing my district for was exactly what Kelly Hilton, Lisa Heifeld, and Sarah Landis were working on with their school district. And I'm proud to say that I'm very good friends with all 3 of the authors. I've gotten to know them very well. So kind of knowing where we got started, you need to know their story, and then I'll weave in how that relates to Franklin Township. So these ladies, when they started to get going in their district in California, they were rolling out tons of carts out in their district. They were going to have many Chromebooks, and they had all these visions of, oh my gosh, we're going to be seeing all these awesome engagements that teachers are going to be doing. And then when they started to walk by the classrooms, they noticed that they saw a lot of teachers doing consumption sites. And they were not upset. I want to make sure that you guys understand that. They were not upset. What it was that they started to think to themselves, If a teacher doesn't know any better and they don't know what to do with technology, they're going to lean on finding something that is easy for them. So in other words, if I need to meet with a group of kids, what could I possibly have the kids do that's kind of educational, loosely tied to what I'm doing, but it gets them busy, basically is what I'm saying. So with that, then they came up with a plan of what they wanted to do. And they said, you know what, our solution is going to be Hyperdocs. Now, when I say Hyperdocs, they wanted to come up with a digital lesson design format that could help their teachers learn how to use that technology, that device, to help them as they were designing lessons. So what they felt like was the most important was you have to be able to layer content, technology, and what we know are good pedagogical practices in the classroom. So they felt like that a good digital design is going to have all three of these components together. So as they started to work on that, they said, okay, to me, that would be the total package if you could have all of those things together. So they started to think, okay, what would those components be? So what they started out with was, okay, you need to have a component for explore, because either if you're introducing a topic, you have already started the topic in your classroom and you're using this to reinforce what you're doing in the classroom, students have to have resources to explore, videos, infographics, excerpts from text, and so on. The next main component is going to be to explain. In some way, the student has to be able to explain the lesson objective, and that can be student choice. They started to layer in, ooh, well, this is really great, but I've got to build in student choice. Maybe one student wants to type what they can explain about the objective. Another kid may want to record what they know about the topic. And then they got to the section for apply. So this is where it's layering in, again, student choice, but the student is now creating something that's going to allow them to show what they know. And, instead of thinking of like a traditional assessment, this is where the students are getting more opportunities and more choices. So I start reading this through their book and my mind starts exploding like, oh my gosh, this is the package. This is what my teachers need to see. And what I noticed when I read the book, they had really written the book for like either upper elementary, middle school, and high school, because that's what they were working with. And I knew that this could also be applied all the way down to kindergarten. So in my district, at the same time, I actually was able to meet with technology reps once a quarter. I started to talk to them about the concept of a Hyperdoc, and a Hyperdoc they originally had the design be in a Google Doc, that's how it was packaged, but you really can package it in multiple platforms. It could be in Google Slides, it could be in Google Docs, it could be in Maps, it could be in Microsoft products. I don't want you to think that this is Google only, but the teacher needed to see how would this look before and after? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So for instance, if a student was in the classroom, they might be doing, something to learn about Bossy R, and it might have been like a digital worksheet, it could have been a worksheet, but how do we turn something like that into digital and then ramp up the engagement? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up, this was actually the very first Hyperdoc that I made several years ago, and I had to wrap my head around what that would look like. And of course, it's taking a moment to load here. And as I was doing that, we were discussing, is there a certain format that you need to have? So I thought, if we're going to use this with little kids, we need to have some consistency. I didn't want to force my teachers to use the same template, but a lot of the teachers sitting in the meeting said, if we use a standard template that all teachers can go with, then now the kid is seeing the consistency. So we decided on those core items: explore, explain, and apply. And we used some visuals with emojis. And before, remember, they just would have been doing a worksheet. So now what this looks like as a Hyperdoc is, here's the explore. So we have not one, but two videos that the kids can actually take a look to review the concept of BOSS-ER. Then we also have on the explain, where the kid gets choices. I know this looks like a lot. I don't know what my teachers are using, so that's why we gave them several choices. Then when it came to the apply with BOSS-ER, I didn't want it to be, that cut and paste. How could we transfer that digitally? So in other words, I came up with, well, what if they have the pictures? They have to type the word, and then they have to actually fill in the bubble to spell the word. And this brought up a good conversation. Some teachers thought, oh, well, the kids aren't going to know how to do that. We need a technology class for that. And I said, I'm more about, let's weave in those little skills as you're rolling out these items with the Hyperdoc. So on the apply, this is the equivalent of a digital worksheet, okay? But what I want you to realize is that a Hyperdoc is not just this in isolation. The beauty of a Hyperdoc is that it's got the videos to reinforce what the kid needs to know. They've got the outlet to explain. Now they've got that layer or that component of a digital worksheet. As a teacher, I could go ahead and layer in here a link to Quizzes or Kahoot because those are applications as well. But the ultimate is the creation. And again, if I was just having the kid do the worksheet, then that's not as good as something like a Hyperdoc because of the way that I've packaged my digital lesson. So now the student has to show me what they know, and they could use Storyboard, they could create their own, they could do a book snap. It could be something digital, but it doesn't have to be something digital. And differentiation is built in. My highest learners are going to be through the Hyperdoc quickly, and they can be spending more time on the creation component. And my learners that need those additional supports can go back to those other slides. So with that, this is the easiest way for me to show my teachers, this is what you did before in your classroom. Now let's talk about what that looks like digitally. And the same concept falls for secondary. This lesson was actually created by Scott Padway, who is a teacher and technology coach out in California with the 3 Hyperdoc ladies. And to me, this one seals the deal to show anybody in secondary how a Hyperdoc can really help you. So on this was his original. So he just had a Google Doc. And if you're in this presentation, you can open these up. This is the original, and it was just a Google Doc. Do this, read this. No visuals, not very appealing at all. So then he said, okay, well, let me ramp it up. So then version 2 is this link, and he's turning things into a table. So yeah, it's better-ish, but could it have some improvement still? Yes. But I love the fact that we can see the stages that this teacher was doing this. And he said, you know what, I'm going to kick this out of Google Docs and I'm going to put it into Google Slides. So again, remember, no visuals, just straight up in a doc. Then we turn it into tables. Now I want to show you his after when he decided to change it into Google Slides. So look at the difference here about, is this more engaging for students when they're going to open it? Absolutely. He still has his objective, everything that he's wanting the kids to do. It's just the way that it's packaged is different in this. So he's got his table, he's got his activity, and so on. Notice that he's got the explore, he's got the explain, watch one or both. So see how he's layering in the student choice in here. And then he even has a choice board for the application. Now, he loved this one, but he said, you know what? I could make this even better. So I love on this last slide, it says next level. So then he took it up another notch so that way he could go ahead and make sure that he was totally thinking about what's best for the kids in a digital environment. So now he's got engage, and they've got a political cartoon. I love this. He's got Yoda in here, and he's telling them, are you going to choose A? Or are you going to choose B? So then these link out to things that they need to read, documents that they need to read. Then he's got a link to a Google form. He's telling the kids, okay, stop. I need you to wait until we decide to proceed. And then he's going to have them analyze the data from the class results. This would be if they were in class, get up and find a classmate, but you could easily flip that and make it digital. Look at how he's trying to incorporate the images of the newspapers that are going to take the kids out to the activity. He kept on here some of those original slides, but now look at his choice board. He's now realized, hey, I can give them even more options. And sometimes teachers see this and they wig out because they think, holy cow, I can't give all these options. I don't know how to do all these things. But what he realized was that I don't need to be the expert in all of this. If a kid in secondary really wants to use ThingLink or Powtoon, as long as I have a link out to those items, the kid can go ahead and learn that stuff on their own. And when I'm designing my rubric to grade what it is that I need to grade out of this, then it's not that I'm not creating a rubric for Pictochart and a rubric for ThingLink. I always tell my teachers, you're making a rubric for what it is that you're assessing. How the kid decides to show what they know is up to them. You're just looking at the criteria of the standard that you've chosen to have them do. This one goes on and on. But what I wanted you to realize is that this one was the game changer for secondary so that they could see the benefit of the before and after. So having this process and being able to show my teachers, I started to go out and do PD. And I'll be honest, when I started this out, I started out with a very big foundation in elementary because I wanted to get that foundation started so that as these kids got older in our district, then they understood the concept moving forward. And again, I wanted to make sure that teachers all understand, this is not a digital version of a worksheet. This is that layered pedagogy. It's, something that has student choice and student voice layered within. So then what I did with our teachers, and if you are brand new to Hyperdocs, I can't recommend this enough. These two documents have all kinds of samples to get you going. And these were compiled by the creators of Hyperdocs. And so in primary, you've got a link out here to a document. In secondary, there's all kinds of secondary ones. The other component of Hyperdocs that people love, that I absolutely love, is that Hyperdocs are not meant to be sold. They are meant to be freely shared so that another teacher can benefit and not have to start from scratch. So for instance, if you like the Hyperdoc, you open it up and you're like, you know what, I like this, but I want to take out a couple of slides and so on. You go to file and make a copy, or sometimes they go ahead and force a copy for you. But then when you open it up, you can basically go through and gut out the things that you don't need, and you can add things that you do want. Okay. So absolutely, they're not meant to be sold. So two good places that I can tell you to also take a look. They have a giant Facebook group that is very, very big, and they're very welcoming. A lot of times when I would do trainings with our teachers in the district, I would say, what are you getting ready to teach? The teacher said, I'm getting ready to start Civil War. All right. So I typed it on the Facebook group. Does anybody have a Hyperdoc that's on Civil War? And when I went back 10 minutes later, there were 13 Hyperdocs that were, these things are good. Like when you open them up, you're going to go, holy cow, I can't believe the teacher is not selling this on Teachers Pay Teachers. But again, they're following the guidelines of Hyperdocs, and that is we need to help teachers. It's teachers giving to other teachers and so on. So then my teachers' minds were blown like, holy cow, I didn't even know that this existed. So what that started with, this started at the elementary level. If you click on this link where it says Franklin Township, what I then started doing with my teachers in grades kindergarten through 5th grade, I taught them how to make Hyperdocs with their templates. And I said, let's take a look at the Indiana state standards, and let's help each other and help others around the state and globally. So if you want to take a look at some samples, I've got kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You can use any of these. These are all 100% free. I'm going to talk about my Hyperdoc collection in just a moment. But if you want to take a look at any of those, feel free to do that. I just wanted to let you know. All right. That being said, so after I started to do that small group, and I was training, different groups of teachers at the elementary, then what I did was I needed to go out into classrooms, because I can't just say, oh, these Hyperdoc things are great, so here they all are and you can just use it. I knew that my teachers, especially the ones that were not techie, needed to be able to see it modeled in front of them, so that way they knew how do you use a Hyperdoc for instruction. So what I did, this is that same Hyperdoc I pulled up for you before. I went into classrooms, and there's just one of me in my district, but at the elementaries, I would say, hey, Bunker Hill, I'm coming to you next Tuesday. Who would like for me to come and do a model lesson in your classroom so I can demonstrate Hyperdocs? So they had a sign-up sheet, and then I would go around. So what I want you to notice is that when I got going with Hyperdocs, you cannot just say, hey, kids, here's a Hyperdoc, now go do it, because they don't understand how they're supposed to interact with it. So what I literally did was still that gradual release. I got up there in front of the students. They had their flexible seating, and the students were following along. I would say, okay, everybody, we're going to go to slide 2. And again, because we use Google Slides, I had to teach the kids, like, we're not in present mode, we're in edit mode. So if you need to type, you can type on here, and so on. And that, I started doing that massively around all of the school district. And that was a huge sell, because then the teachers that may not have understood what to do, now they get it and they wanted more. They were like, the kids love them. They want more of them. So that's why each quarter when I would meet with my group, we tried to work 9 weeks ahead, so that way we could have Hyperdocs that were ready for teachers to use the next quarter when they got ready to teach that. So I also knew that teachers would say, well, I don't know if that's going to work in my classroom. And so I went to my higher tech teachers and I was like, okay, can you let me come into your room to record, what this looks like? So that way, if I have a kindergarten teacher that's like, this won't work in kindergarten, I just don't see how this would work. Then Kristen Van Vliet let me go into her room. She's showing how she gets her kindergarten into Google Classroom. She's showing them how to get to the Hyperdoc. And then she says, come up to the front, and then she does the modeling. And then she releases it to them. And there's a lot of power in that, because then you're seeing someone who teaches in the same role as you, and it's real. It's not just someone standing in front of you doing a PD. So that really helped my teachers. So then I started to create so many Hyperdocs for all these different grade levels, because I was going into rooms. I started to put them into a document. So on here, there is a link out to my Hyperdoc collection. So I'm going to open that up for you. These are not in any order by grade level. Literally every time that I would make one, then I would just keep adding it to this doc. So at the top, I wanted teachers to know, hey, here's your templates. If you're a primary teacher, if you're an intermediate teacher. And this one was really helpful, because as I told you, there's only one of me. So any of these that you see on here that you like, you tap on the image and then you tap below here, and then it will open it up, or it will force a copy. And this one was the one that teachers really liked, because I have a video of me on every slide, like guiding you along the way. Like, here's what you put in Explore, and so on. But as we scroll down here, I have all kinds. Like there's that Bossy R. My kids at home were learning about coins. So I was like, I could make a Hyperdoc for that. So we started to do that. I've got tons that are in here. So if the biggest thing that my teachers needed, and I feel like anybody getting started with Hyperdocs, what you need is you need to see a lot of samples, and you need to be able to use those samples, tweak those samples for your students until you get comfortable. And then you feel like that you're ready to make your own. So that's another thing that I love with that gradual release with the Hyperdoc. Like if you want this one that I made about prefixes, you can open it. If it isn't a forced copy, then you just go to the word file and you hit make a copy. And then if you don't like some of the stuff that I have in there, if you're like, I don't know if my kids would do that, then delete that slide off. That's the beauty of a Hyperdoc, is that you can customize it for your students. The amount that I have is over 50 now. I mean, it just started to grow as I went in. I went into a kindergarten classroom, and this was important too. I wanted to make sure that things tied to what the teachers were doing currently in their classroom. So I would say, hey, you signed up for me to come to your classroom. Can you tell me what it is that you're teaching next week in reading and math and these subjects? Because I would say, do you need me to show your kids how to use a Hyperdoc in math, or do you need it in reading? What subject area do you need? And when I come in, I want it to be purposeful. I don't want it to be some random, I'm going to teach you about a Hyperdoc. So that's why you notice on these, that you see these different topics. I had a third grade reached out to me and they said, hey, we're doing a novel study on I Survived the attacks of September 11th. So then I showed them what a Hyperdoc would look like for a novel and so on. There were my fifth grade teachers were doing, they were doing a book. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it had something to do with the Iditarod. And so then I made a correlating Hyperdoc about sled dogs in the Iditarod to go along with that. With our fourth grade, we won the digital learning grant in Indiana last year, and we wrote the grant to work on digital curriculum. And so I actually have, if you teach fourth grade science, you're going to love this because we've got everything for Indiana. If you're not Indiana, you can open these up and you can make a copy and tweak it to meet your needs. So I've got all kinds of stuff in here. The one thing that I always tell everybody is just be mindful again that, that these are not to be sold. I did have an issue a couple of years back where someone was actually trying to sell my Hyperdocs, but I have so many good Samaritans out there that inform me and let me know. It was quickly taken down and it's not a problem anymore. So feel free to use that to get started. So again, model lessons is what we did with that. But then we started to look into e-learning because our school district had not been doing e-learning for snow days, inclement weather days. And we started to entertain the idea. And so then they were asking me in my district, like, do we think that the students are prepared? At this time, when this was going on in grades 6 through 12, they were one-to-one with Chromebooks and using Canvas, and they were designing lessons on a daily basis. They were more concerned about kindergarten through fifth grade because, yes, they had been using Google Classroom, but we had a mix of devices because at that time we were not one-to-one. So I worked on coming up with a plan that would work with that. And I said, oh my gosh, since we've been doing so much with Hyperdocs, this is really going to help us. And so if you tap on this link, it's going to take you out to I ended up creating a website that has everything of how we rolled out our e-learning for inclement weather. That's how this started out. And on here, if I go to the K-12 tiers on elementary, you're going to notice on here that we've got different templates and things. I'm waiting for this one to load. I designed a template for eLearning that all teachers can use because we wanted consistency. But on here, you're going to notice that it really mimics a lot of what the kids were seeing for a Hyperdoc. So this wasn't something brand new. They knew the concept and what it would look like. So having that foundation of Hyperdocs really helped to prepare us. So as we were moving towards eLearning. So that being said, of course, we all know that when COVID shut everybody down in the spring, that then created a new wrench. So as we were designing lessons, in my district, we do a lot of massive divide and conquer. And so I had, rather than asking every single teacher to, make all the videos on their own and so on, we were dividing up the work, and each week they were filtering resources to me. If you want to see, I'm going to go back to our website here. If you want to see how we rolled out during COVID in the spring, I have all of those resources in one area. And it talks to you about how we did smartphones and paper pencil, how we did the communication. I'm an open book. I feel like that there are so many people that need help. There's a lot of school districts in the country and in the world that don't have a position like mine. And I felt really bad for teachers. So I try to throw everything out there. So if anybody's like, I don't know what to do, then you could see how these pieces go together. So I was showing our teachers, yes, you're going to use these lessons, but we started to realize the benefit of using a template. And so I started to come up with different templates for math and reading. And remember, we already had a bunch of Hyperdocs that we could use for that foundation. And so we really leaned on that. And in here, I had so many people asking for the resources that we had. I put them all in this document. So if you open up this document, it's going to load here for me. This has everything on it. Like if you want the template, okay, if you want to know how we managed paper pencil, we used Google Sites for that. Guided reading, math e-learning, and all of that. Now, this being said, this was how we handled it in the spring. And you guys are actually really lucky because with me doing this training right now, I'm going to be showing you how is our district going to handle things like our teachers report tomorrow. And as of right now, our students are not coming. It's going to be virtual only for the first 2 days on Monday. And obviously, everybody did the best that they could in the spring, but we had to have an even better foundation moving forward. So all summer, I was racking my brain on what that would look like. And so for my teachers and really anybody, because if you follow me on social media, I've been sharing this stuff out everywhere. I felt like that a teacher needed to have sorry, I'm losing my voice. A teacher needed to have a resource guide that they could go back to as we return to school, because we don't know if, we would be told that we're shut down, that we have to go, online only. So I needed them to have a resource guide, and that is what is over here. And in this resource guide, I'm going to let that open up. In this resource guide, it's basically a handbook for teachers to see everything that I could possibly think of. These are all of the topics that I was getting questions about and inundated with emails about. So I broke it into, there's a background, there's some essentials, there's a digital lesson toolkit, and then we've got digital lesson design, additional resources, all kinds of things so that my teachers could have this at their fingertips. So that was the giant resource that I made. And then I started to make newer templates of math and guided reading and all of those things. But I knew that I was going to have teachers all across the board. Like some people are just naturally tech savvy and others are not. Well, if we had to switch again and go online only, I need every single teacher to know what should I do and how do I get this to work. And so then I created this that's a template step-by-step, and it literally walks the teacher through what should I do, how do I use these to help me. So right here are all of the updated templates. Because again, in the spring, we were trying to do the best that we could, but it wasn't as close to what are we doing inside of, what are we doing on a daily basis to make this mimic more of a in-class feel. So I had to ramp up the templates. So for instance, I'm going to pull up the guided reading template. You can either click here or off to the side. My teachers would open up the template, and when they open it up, then they're going to see all of the components that they would need. And again, all of this was built from the foundation of the Hyperdoc. You're going to notice the way that we have designed our templates and our lessons follow that same rule of the Hyperdocs. So we've got, hey, you're going to put a mini lesson here. You don't know how to do it. Put it here. You want to have practice. You want to interactive read aloud and guided reading. All of these things, you're going to have synchronous. I try to think of every component that a teacher might need. And then they can use this as their guide to get going. So with this, I literally go through step by step, like make a copy, delete items you don't need. And I've got a video of me guiding them through every step of the way. How do you insert images and hyperlinks? How do you insert a video? All of these things, I need every teacher to know all of this information. So again, I'm trying to make it, none of this is easy for everybody to navigate, but I'm trying to take a difficult situation and try to simplify things for teachers as much as what I can. So between these two documents, we needed teachers to have like overall guidelines so that way they could see how do all these pieces go together? Because yes, you've given me a resource guide. Yes, you've shown me Hyperdocs. Yes, I've got a template, but how does all of that go together? So this is actually a document that we came up with. And when you tap on it, it will take you out here to it. So we came up with some guidelines because we gave our families options if they wanted to go online only, or if you wanted to start back face-to-face. And so we had some general guidelines for folks, but this was the part I really wanted you to see. So if you are a secondary teacher, we tried to take like, what does that look like in your classroom? So we know that you did a check-in, a bell ringer, direct instruction, practice. You do a check for understanding. We took all these basic components. We put out a description. I really wanted to make sure all of my teachers understand the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, and that is important. And then resources. So if a teacher's like, I don't know what this means, which I'll just give you a little blip here. Synchronous is live. That could be in your classroom face-to-face, or it could be that you're using Google Meet or Zoom as a synchronous. Asynchronous is a screencast of the teacher giving the lesson, or it's you went out and you found a video that's going over the topic that you're doing. So I knew the teachers needed to know, well, if I'm doing a check for understanding, where would that fall in this category? And then what are the resources I can use? What we did for the teachers is these link out to a specific page in the Teaching Digitally Resource Handbook. So that way they're seeing all things go together. We then went down into, what does guided reading look like? We do extensions, which are like our interventions. So we had to explain every bit of what does this look like for you if you're online. We use everyday math. And so we had to take a look at what that looks like and so on. Science, social studies, how does that apply? SPED and EL, what does that look like for you? But every time that you see that they're designing a lesson, we really are using that concept of the Hyperdoc philosophy as teachers are designing their lessons. And if a teacher is doing science or social studies, I gave them a link directly to the template that they would need, and so on. So I wanted to pull up this document because you see all these little pieces or things that I post on social media, but this is how all of those pieces actually go together. So I'm hoping that you guys can see how I started out by reading the book, how we took the concept of, what does this look like for us? And then I met with a small group of people. We started out by, having them create some, because that's what I think is important is, how do you take this and how do you start to roll it out in a district? And so I said, let's pull in our most tech savvy people. And then let's have it, help them out. And so they were designing Hyperdocs to help out teachers that they weren't forced to use, but if they wanted to use. And then we just started building capacity. Now, one thing that I am going to show, I'm going to go, sorry, I need to find which tab that I've got here's the teaching digitally. I had the challenge of, up until this point, we were using Hyperdocs at the elementary grades. And, then I started to realize we need to start focusing on this more at secondary. And so I had to wrap my brain around what in the world does that look like, because we use Canvas at grades 6 through 12. And yes, I want them to use Hyperdocs, but how does that translate into the world of Canvas? And so on this teaching digitally, this will take me directly to the Hyperdoc page. And on here, it's got all kinds of information about Hyperdocs. But then I needed to have this bridge, this connection of what do Hyperdocs look like in Canvas? And how does that resonate? So I was contacted by Instructure, which owns Canvas. And over the summer, they asked me to do a webinar basically on how do you do Hyperdocs in Canvas. There's a link to that webinar. If you want to watch that, you can. But the document that really helped, I'm going to pull this one up. This is what I knew my teachers would need. So you use a Hyperdoc, but what does that look like in Canvas? If you're watching this and you don't use Canvas, but you use Schoology, you use eLearning, you use something else, the same process can work. Basically, what I want you to know is I don't want someone to say, oh, well, we're Canvas or we use this other LMS, so we don't need to use Hyperdocs. Hyperdocs are just good digital lesson design, no matter what learning management system that you're using. So I knew what teachers would need to see is here's that component, engage or explore. Here's the description, but then what does that look like in Canvas? So on this one, it's going to go through each one of those parts. But I knew that the teachers would have more questions. So I said, okay, let's make an FAQ because I knew that people would be asking me questions. So on here, I have a FAQ document that's like, well, what is it? Yeah, but isn't that just a doc with links? I got a little excited. I started using, the GIFs from friends that just fit perfect when I was making this. But then with this, isn't it just a doc with links? So I tried to take the most popular questions that people would ask me, and then I put them into this resource so that way they would know, I don't have time to answer all these emails. So now I just refer them to a document like this to get their help. The ultimate thing that I needed to do for teachers then was I needed to create a template in Canvas Commons that people could find and they could use. And so if you are a Canvas user, if you type in my name or if you type in Hyperdoc template, you will actually find a template that can help you get started with using Hyperdocs in that fashion. So I hope that today I've been able to give you guys, these are the ways that you could roll it out. Maybe you were looking at my gradual release and saying, okay, well, we're here. How do I take what you just showed me? And instead of starting at phase 1, it's COVID, we got to jump to phase 3 or whatever. Hopefully I've given you an idea of how you can roll this out slowly, or if you need to use any of these materials. All of my materials are free to share. As I said, this one right here is the one that really helped my teachers because I'm a guide on the side telling them step by step what to do. There's all kinds of other options that you can do as well. But I know that we have some time to have some Q&A at the end of this, which is what I wanted to leave time for. So I want you I'll do some question and answer, but I also want you to think about these and what was the most helpful to you? How could you use this in your classroom? Do you have some new ideas?
Here's some coffee for you to get that.
I know. I reached for a coffee and it's empty.
The worst. Okay, so we had some questions, and we'll try and pop them up on the screen. And those of you who are watching, if you have questions, you want to type them in. Let's see. Here's the first one from Brad. Can you quickly explain how Canvas is different when using Hyperdocs?
I'm assuming that this person has Canvas in their district. Basically,
getting it. So yeah.
Oh, just getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that, Canvas is a learning management system. So it's how you can deliver your instruction, like how you get assignments and things. But you can build your course and build your content digitally. What a Hyperdoc is doing, like if you decide to use the Canvas template, is you're still going to have your home page and, your units, but the Hyperdoc is basically a way to organize your unit. So you could take those concepts of explore, explain, apply, and you can layer that in there. Some teachers prefer to use Google Slides, and then in Canvas, they embed the Google slide deck inside of there that they want the students to see. But other teachers want to just build in Canvas. So that's why I wanted to give them both options. Hopefully that answered his question.
Oh, Holly's mic is muted. Rookie.
Oh.
Dang it. I can't do as cool as Seth does and throw them up on screen. Diane Hutchinson had a question that if they are doing research, would you put it in a slide and layer many options?
You mean like the location of where they would find the research?
I think so. And maybe like if they're taking notes in that, how would you?
Yeah, I would do that. Like if you had recommended, recommended sites that you want them to go to get their research, you could do that. Of course, that depends upon the grade level. But yeah, you could do that easily.
Okay.
All right. Another question was about like the fine arts. So how could you do this in band class? One of my suggestions, and I love Hyperdocs. I think I use Hyperdocs for my high school engineering class, and for anything from like a week assignment or a couple day assignment to multiple weeks, because one, I think students do a better job following directions with a Hyperdoc than just a step-by-step direction document.
Yes.
And the other one is I can add like checkpoints in there and things like that. So here's the question right here from Dawn. What about music or band? So how can Hyperdocs be used in those?
They can do the same concept. So, I mean, that template can be used. It doesn't matter what you teach. I mean, whatever concept it is that you're using in music or band, you can have an explore, an explain, and an apply. What I see that being for a music class or band would be like the application would be, either a flip grid, the student actually recording something that they can use a video platform But it doesn't have to be just Flipgrid. I mean, there's other options that they could do. My elementary music teachers had already started last spring doing this concept. If you look at the resources that says free resources from like COVID spring, if you scroll down to the related arts, we have all of our related arts lessons on there that we used. I got permission from our teachers and all of them are on there. And we had to, shorten it because it was right in the heat of COVID. So we did explore, apply, extend. We decided to shorten it to that instead of the full blown, but that can give you a good idea. So definitely take a look at our music ones, because that can give you guys a good starting point.
A question about, would you do a Hyperdoc in one day or more than one day?
That depends upon what you want to use the Hyperdoc for. If it is an activity, like for instance, when we design for like kindergarten or something, I usually tried to tell our teachers, keep that at like 3 or 4 slides. I didn't want it to be too heavy. And then again, we were building it up. So usually in the younger grades, they're not as intensive. They're not as many slides. And then as we work our way into, 3rd grade, 4th grade and on up, it really can be a mix. I mean, if the teacher's just wanting a short lesson, it could just be explore, explain, apply. But then that's where you'll start to see larger units. For instance, since I used to be a 4th grade teacher, one of the first big Hyperdocs that I did, I was like, okay, I used to do a whole unit on the Underground Railroad. So I literally took everything that I used to do to teach that unit on the Underground Railroad and put it into a Hyperdoc. That sucker is ginormous. Like if somebody opened it, they'd be like, holy cow, this is way too much for kids. But I put everything that I did, and then I just tell my teachers, look, I'm not telling you that you got to do everything out of here. You pick and choose. Like, I'm going to do these slides. Maybe they decide to use that for a couple weeks since it's for a unit and you're communicating to the kids. Today, we're going to be doing slides 2 through 5 or something like that. Maybe you break it up and you've got like a part 1 and a part 2. So right. Thinking about those as well. Oh,
all right. So Julia Brody had a question. I've heard that if you copy a Hyperdoc, you need to go in and change some links or secure that they are going back to you instead of the original author.
Exactly. What I tell my teachers is that if I'm going to put it, I'm really good about it because I know that I'm sharing everywhere. But if a teacher is going to create one, like let's say I embedded a Flipgrid that I wanted the kids to do, I'm like, no, you have to take off the link to your Flipgrid. What I tell people to do is just take the link off or put it just a link to flipgrid.com. But yes, you're right. You do have to go through before you're going to decide to share it with everybody or put it on the Facebook group. You do want to make sure that you've gone through and you've taken those types of links out.
All right. Seth's audio is having problems. So let me go back here and see if there are some more questions. This is great, though. I mean, everybody, like you probably already know, everybody loves you. I've been putting out there that you're the queen of Indiana Hyperdocs. So
oh, thanks.
I'll have to get you a crown.
Oh, nice.
I like my friends. I do for them. The worksheet for, Diane Hutchinson again, the worksheet for upper grades looks like basic research skills, even if it was daily classwork, searching for answers, summarizing info, etc. Would you use this for research projects?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, you could easily layer that in.
And then somebody asked, what's the name of the Hyperdoc Facebook group? I know I'm in it, but right now
I mean, if you just go out to Facebook and if you type on the search bar at the top, just Hyperdocs, you'll see the link. I think they have to like approve you or whatever, but it's real easy. It doesn't take very long. And usually like after I do a session like this, then like the next day they're like, welcome our newest members. And it's like a whole bunch of people. Yeah. And then they're like, hey, did you do a training? I'm like, yep, I did. And so that really helps. Also go out to their website because they totally revamped it happened during COVID when they finally released it. So they've got free online courses that will take you through what is a Hyperdoc and all of that.
Is that when the teachers give teachers?
It is on hyperdocs.co.
Okay. All right. So I put teachers give teachers in the chat notes, and I put your school's thing in the
Yeah.
notes. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. See, they're loving you. See, Queen, put the crown on.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Well, hopefully I didn't go too fast over how we rolled everything out. And
and I think we would love to have you back to go one step further. I know you have other different things that you do with your Hyperdocs and groups. So we'd love to have you back for one step further.
Sure. Whenever.
All right. Thank you again for doing this. I forgot to put this up earlier, but if anybody needs some PGP points, they can go to the bit.ly that is rolling across the bottom of the screen. The link is also in the emails that registered attendees get, and it is in the description below on these videos on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Holly, for hosting this one. And we're going to continue doing Hyperdocs all day long. Yep. And we're getting ready to start. I think Stephanie is up next.
And hers is on 4th grade Hyperdocs and what she did during COVID. It's really good. I know it. I've seen it preview. So
nice.
Most of both teachers today that are going to present, her and Catherine Belt, did great things during COVID, and that's kind of what they're showing us.
Cool.
All right, Nadine, good luck with the start of your year tomorrow.
Thanks.
Thinking of you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.